This is Saurabh, and you're listening to my favorite talk show, the PG Show with Aditya.
It's time for episode number 237 on the 22nd of July 2020. It was towards the middle of the meal that, feeling that it was about time somebody said something, I drew Pop Bass's attention to the table's centerpiece. In any normal house, it would have been a bowl of flowers or something of that order, but this being totally Taz, it was a small black figure carved of some material I couldn't put a name to. It was so gosh awful in every respect that I presumed it must be something he had collected recently. My Uncle Tom is always coming back from sales with similar eyesores. That's new, isn't it? I said, and he started violently. I suppose he had just managed to persuade himself that I was merely a mirage and had been brought up with a round turn on discovering that I was there in the flesh. The thing in the middle of the table that looks like the end man in a minstrel show. It's something you gone since I was here last, isn't it? Tactless of me, I suppose, to remind him of that previous visit of mine, and I oughtn't to have brought it up, but these things slip out. Yes, he said, having paused for a moment to shudder. It is the latest addition to my collection. Daddy brought it from a man named Plank who lives not far from here at the Hockley cum Meston, said Madeline. Attractive little bijou, I said. It hurt me to look at it, but I felt that nothing was to be lost by giving him the old oil. Just the sort of thing Uncle Tom would like to have. By Jove, I said, remembering. Aunt Dahlia was speaking to me about it on the phone yesterday, and she told me Uncle Tom would give his eye teeth to have it in his collection. I am not surprised, it looks valuable. It's worth £1,000, said Stiffy, coming out of her coma and speaking for the first time. As much as that? Golly, amazing, I was thinking that magistrates could get to be able to afford expenditure on that scale just by persevering through the years, fining people and sticking to the money. What is it? Soapstone? I had said the wrong thing. Amber, Pop Bassett snapped, giving me the sort of look he had given me in heaping measure on the occasion when I had stood in the dock before him at Posher Street Police Court. Black amber. Of course, yes, that's what Aunt Dahlia said, I recall. She spoke very highly of it. Let me tell you, extremely highly. Indeed, oh, absolutely. I had been hoping that this splash of dialogue would have broken the ice, so to speak, and started us off kidding back and forth like the guys and dolls in one of those old world salons you read about. But no, silence fell again, and eventually, at long last, the meal came to an end, and 2 minutes later, I was on my way to my room where I proposed to pass the rest of the evening with an Earl Stanley Gardner I had brought with me. No sense, as I saw it, in going and mixing with the mob in the drawing room and having Spoot glare at me and Pop Bassett sniff at me and Madeline Bassett as likely as not sing old English folk songs at me till bedtime. I was aware that in executing this quiet sneak I was being guilty of a social gaffe which would have drawn raised eyebrows from the author of a book of etiquette, but great lesson we learn from life is to know when and when not to be in the center of things. I have a special song for you tonight, a song most of you would have never heard. So let's start the song. Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, spins a web any size, catches thieves just like fly. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he sing from a thread? Take a look over it. Hey there goes the Spider-Man. The chill of night at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, wealth and fame he is ignored, action is his reward. To him, life is a great big bang up. Whenever there's a hang up, you'll find the Spider-Man. Did you all get a chance to watch the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, which was broadcast on Monday the 20th of July? If not, then I am here to give you a glimpse into what exactly happened. Suppose this pay-per-view, which is called the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, is different from most of them because it was renamed horror show known as the Extreme Rules, and it gave us an idea of what people are feeling outside the realm of the WWE gimmicks. Gimmicks of wearing the mask, the gimmick of social distancing, the gimmick of staying at home. It's indeed an horror show, but now let's take the discussion further into as to exactly what happened at this pay-per-view. There were 3 title defenses, 2 of which were defended successfully and 1 which was lost, but that wasn't exactly lost or won by anyone because there will be a rematch for that. The first title defense was for the WWE Championship between recurring WWE champion Drew McIntyre and his former partner in Dolph Ziggler. Till 2 years ago, when McIntyre made his re-entry into the universe of WWE as compared to when he was fired over a decade ago around 2011, McIntyre's story has been built up on his firing and rehiring as far as his wrestling career is concerned, and a certain Dolph Ziggler feels that he has played an important role in restarting his WWE career. Similar to the way a certain Bray Wyatt feels that Braun Strowman is his creation and he wants Braun Strowman to come back into the realm of the Wyatt family and all the strange horrors associated with what is the Wyatt family. First, let's talk about the McIntyre Ziggler match. As I said, these two were partners a couple of years ago before there was a brand extension and they went into different brands. McIntyre stayed in the brand of Raw and Ziggler was transported to Smackdown. How did this Ziggler-McIntyre rivalry begin? After successfully defending his title against Seth Rollins at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which was also a match which would be called of epic proportions. If you remember, I had described this match as the one matching between John Cena and The Rock. After defending against Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre faced another formidable opponent, a former partner in Bobby Lashley, and he managed to go through all the mind games and the 2-in-1 advantage that Lashley had in terms of having MVP in his corner. While Lashley and Seth Rollins matches against Drew McIntyre were a foregone conclusion because McIntyre was supposed to take this championship till the end of 2020. The biggest surprise was when Dolph Ziggler was traded into Raw instead of AJ Styles. If you remember, AJ Styles had a boneyard match, a cinematic themed match with Undertaker while he was a part of Raw, and after this boneyard match, he was gone for a couple of weeks before he returned at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view event. Then he went to Smackdown and Dolph Ziggler was transported to Raw. Of course, as the story is created, it goes as such that in a strange way, Ziggler feels that he is responsible for restarting the career of McIntyre as Ziggler made him his partner while Ziggler was winning championships. McIntyre's job was to be what he himself said as the muscle. While these two were partners a couple of years ago, their sole purpose was to bring to an end the Shield along with Braun Strowman while he was a part of Raw and Bobby Lashley. These four individuals had their targets set on the Shield. The Shield since then has kind of broken and they're all in different direction, but that is not the discussion right now. So when Dolph Ziggler challenged Drew McIntyre for a WWE championship, saying that not only did he deserve to win back the championship, but he is also responsible for Drew McIntyre being the champion now. It was indeed going to be a very interesting match. And then at horror show known as the Extreme Rules or the Extreme Rules known as the Horror Show, Ziggler put up a stipulation which he did not reveal till the last moment. So what was this stipulation? The stipulation was that only Ziggler would be fighting under Extreme Rules, means that if he delivered a low blow or if he was out, he would not be disqualified, he would not be counted out. But Drew McIntyre would fight under normal wrestling rules, means if Drew McIntyre was disqualified or Drew McIntyre was counted out, then Ziggler would go on to win the championship. And this is what McIntyre's biggest test was. The match almost worked for Ziggler along with the stipulation. It almost worked, but McIntyre was able to overcome the temptation to launch Ziggler through the table, or when he was outside the ring and the referee had counted his 10 count, he was able to beat the count every time. Though even, as I said, anything can happen in this game called WWE. When Ziggler revealed the stipulations, you could have seen the expression on McIntyre's face as one that I am in trouble, but he overcame the mind games, he overcame all the rules, and he defended his title successfully. But this rivalry is not over. Now it's time for McIntyre to announce the stipulation, means this match will be dragged over to the SummerSlam pay-per-view, which means that WWE is not doing away with this Ziggler-McIntyre rivalry. But remember, somewhere in the shadows, the likes of Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley are also waiting to grab hold of the WWE Championship. It won't be a surprise if they announce that there will be some kind of a gauntlet match or something, which means that individuals have to win a certain stipulation to become his opponent at the next pay-per-view, because apart from Ziggler, as I said, Lashley, Rollins and Randy Orton are also waiting to win and grab hold of the WWE title. How did this match end? While Ziggler prepared to deliver a super kick, which is also known as Shawn Michaels' sweet chin music, out came a claymore out of nowhere, and McIntyre, despite all the odds against him, the rules against him, and the limited rules he had to function in, he defended his championship successfully. Now let's take a brief look at the other non-title but fierce rivalry matches. As you all know, Seth Rollins has adopted a new persona. Over the past month, the rivalry between him and Rey Mysterio has gone on to such horror proportions that it finally ended at this pay-per-view when their match was titled as the Eye for an Eye match. Of course, it was never going to happen that one opponent had to take out the eye of the other opponent, but they had built up the match like that. With no disqualifications, no countouts, Rollins had the advantage, along with having his partner with him in Buddy Murphy. Rollins managed to overcome all the odds, and with the gimmick of the match being applied as an eye for an eye, literally it was meant to be an eye for an eye, it ended in rather somber tones. Now let's move on to another match and look at another rivalry. As I said before, and you must have heard of me saying this a million times, the Bray Wyatt Braun Strowman relationship has taken an unusual turn. Once upon a time, till 4 years ago, they were part of a same faction of its members who went to different brands. Wyatt returned in his new persona as the Fiend, but then he once again returned in the persona he had debuted in. And while most are saying that the Bray Wyatt Braun Strowman swamp fight match, that is in a swamp full of alligators and what all kind of creatures you may have, may not be compared to the Firefly Funhouse match which was between John Cena and Bray Wyatt. Remember, Cena hasn't been seen since his WrestleMania match. And of course, the classic Boneyard match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker. But it was an interesting match nevertheless, with all the demons and all the hell kind of mind games being produced. The match ended in a strange manner. Would I say this match ended abruptly, or the story continues? According to me, just as a movie ends sometimes abruptly, means they want to push the rivalry further. Similarly, this match also ended in a similar fashion. He was dragged down by Bray Wyatt's new persona, the Fiend, into the depths of the water, and the match just ended. Which basically means that their rivalry is not done. And the WWE has devised something for these two wrestlers to carry forward their strange rivalry. Of course, there were a couple of other title matches. One was the Raw Women's Championship, but ended in a strange manner. I won't go into details of that, but all I can say that it was predictable. When the match ended in the manner in which it ended, which was deemed controversial, and then came out one of the managers or one of the co-owners of this brand and said that there will be a rematch, and if Bailey, who had interfered and made Sasha Banks win the Raw Women's Championship, if she interferes, then she will lose the title. And on the extreme hand, there was, of course, the Smackdown Women's Championship. Once again, the number game worked. Well, this time it was equal, but still it was 2:1. The championship retained in strange styles. Championship changing hands as well means there was not much of a conclusion to the rivalries between the respective wrestlers, and this rivalry will be taken forward to the next pay-per-view. So how was the horror show known as the Extreme Rules pay-per-view? Couple of titles changing hands, two titles being retained, though two of them were in a controversial manner, and in WWE, until there are no controversial ends to a match, there is no fun. Not for the first time that such kind of matches have been produced, though compared to how this pay-per-view usually goes, this pay-per-view was short but equally supernatural and horrific. And it also means that we are not done with the rivalries as far as the rivalries which are currently going on are concerned. Means whether it's the tag team rivalries, whether it's the single championship rivalries, whether it's the Intercontinental Championship, the US Championship, the Women's Tag Team Championships, the two Women's One-on-One Championship, the two Men's Tag Team Championship, the WWE Championship, and the Universal Championship. The rivalries are not done. Then the question becomes, will the respective champions be able to retain their championship till the end of the year? Well, my experience says that the end of the year is a long way. So much can happen between the two intervening pay-per-views, the 4 episodes that happened between two pay-per-views. It's a long, long way to go as far as the likes of Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, and their legacy of being entrenched in the legacy title holders are concerned. 5 months and 5 more pay-per-views remain, and I said anything goes in these matches. This ends the WWE discussion. Now move on to something other than WWE. As I said on Monday, England had to do something special to win the match, and that is what exactly happened. Their gamble to open with Ben Stokes worked to perfection when they accelerated and scored those 129 runs in those 18 overs. Quickly means they had a lead of over 300 runs. Then West Indies had over 80 overs to either chase 300 runs, which was always going to be deemed improbable and impossible. West Indies fought hard, but it wasn't enough, and the series is now equaled at 1-all. And the most interesting part in all this is that despite the Jofra Archer faux pas, he was fined, suspended for 1 match. Probably his temperatures were taken by the respective authorities, and he was declared fit and available to play the 3rd match. And now the England team has a conundrum. Who should they play? Should it be the likes of Vokes, Archer and Broad, or should they make Vokes, Curran and Broad, or should Archer, Wood and Anderson play again? Should they bring in another spinner, a left arm spinner instead of the right arm leg spinner? And with the match being played at the same venue, one doesn't have to worry much about how the conditions are going to be because you played for nearly 4.5 days on this ground. As far as their opponents, West Indies, are concerned, do they have some worries? Well, in my case, Shea Hope, who is their best batter, is going through the same troubles Virat Kohli went a couple of years ago. In fact, 6 years ago, Virat Kohli was going through the same horror show. So the question becomes, should someone like Shea Hope be dropped in place of another batter? In my viewpoint, no. He should play because he is the best batter they have. Kohli went through the same horror show. He re-emerged as a better batter. As I said, cricket is a complex game. It's a funny game. You see things in isolation and then you try to pretend that it's a team game. Series at 1-1, there will be pressure on the West Indies. They will want to repeat the performance of the first match, though the tables have turned. England have done better. Their batters are doing well. They have enough bowlers to chop and change and make sure that everybody plays without anyone being injured or stretching a hamstring, so that they don't play for 6 months, or they have enough options to make sure that there are no injuries and everybody gets a fair chance. As I said, the irony is, once upon a time, experts or pseudo experts or quasi experts said the scheduling is poor. There is not much time between two matches, but here they have suddenly, out of the blue, accepted the fact that scheduling is fine, 3 days gap. Once upon a time, they would moan at not having a consistent team, means all 3 or 4 matches, the same set of players playing, and now they say that it's not practical, it's not probable, so we need to make sure that everybody gets a chance. The 3 day gap is not enough between two matches. And as I already said, for me, net sessions are a joke. They don't count. But for the players, they do count. In fact, nowhere in the world do things like net sessions count more than the gimmick with which it is discussed over here. That's the gimmick that is involved in every sport, and that's one thing we may have to kind of accept. Another strange thing that happened is, apart from this England West Indies match being declared 1-1, is that the World T20 Championship was finally, after days and days of delay, months and months of delay, was finally postponed, with the home team refusing to host so many teams. In fact, Australia says that they are more comfortable with Australia and India are rather comfortable with hosting their domestic T20 World Cups rather than the International World Cup being hosted. And the Indian Cricket Board's bullying nature and the pressure of announcing the dates for the Domestic World Championship, also known as IPL, India No Paisa League, at this point in time, it was enough to put pressure on the International Cricket Council to postpone the World Cup. There is clearly the influence of football here, because the footballers are more comfortable with playing the respective domestic tournaments, including the Champions League, rather than playing in the Euro 2020. So the gimmick of hosting or not hosting the World T20 Championship has ended, and instead of it, you're going to have two domestic T20 Championship in their place. Indeed, a very interesting situation. When one hears the term inspiration, what does it mean? My experience, inspiration is no more than a gimmick. Inspiration is overrated. We spend so much time pretending to be inspired by others, and how does this inspiration happen? This inspiration is all about the mind games. For example, let's take a look at person X. This person came from economic hardships and now 15 to 20 years later, he is the CEO of a company. He is or she is heading a big multinational company. We tend to go into their background as to how they came through economic and other hardships, as to how they were not born with a silver spoon, but now they give their children the same silver spoon. How their actions, their words inspire millions. And that is the biggest fatal flaw in humans because we are looking at others with rose colored glasses. How do we see a person being inspired? How do we get inspired by others? We only see through one glass. We see them as individuals who had zero in their bank account and now they have so many zeros that it's difficult to count. Ironically, the definition of success in failure is by how much you have in your bank. For a student, it's getting 98% in your exams or getting A plus, and for others, it's about how much you earn, how much popular you are, how many people follow you on the pseudo quasi sites. And this whole discussion baffles me. But humans will be inspired by others as long as humanity exists, as long as the fictional idea of community exists. Let's take a look at the example of certain individuals. They came from what we call small states and now they are popular in their respective professions. These individuals and their fanatics exploit this very idea of what was their journey from something to nothing, and then they use this to inspire others, sometimes mock individuals, sometimes exploit the gullible nature of humanity because humans by nature were gullible, are gullible, and will always remain gullible. Either we spend so much time trying to inspire others or we waste so much time getting inspired by others. I don't see the need of it. Everybody will have a different story. Now let's look at the dictionary meaning of inspiration. Definition of inspiration: the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially something creative. A feeling of enthusiasm you get from someone or something which gives you new and creative ideas. Collins Dictionary. An inspiring or animating action or influence. Dictionary.com. A divine influence or action on a person believed to qualify him or her to receive and communicate sacred revelation. The excitement of the mind or emotions to a higher level of feeling or activity. Source thefreeddictionary.com. Human beings are gullible and at the same time sensitive creatures, oversensitive creatures. In short, inspiration is a wild goose chase. There are no charities, there is no philanthropy, everything is done from the point of view of either. This will sum up everything in one line. The whole thing is that कि भैया सबसे बड़ा रुपया. As the example goes, over the past few weeks and months on the pseudo and quasi digital sites, a few pseudo and quasi celebrities have revealed that they have also been affected by the current pandemic, and the fact that they reveal this, it brings out some kind of relief for their fanatics, some kind of relief for their fans. In my viewpoint, these very pseudo celebrities reveal such information is because they want to get the publicity. They are not concerned whether their fanatics are concerned about them. They're not concerned that whether they are influenced by the current situation, that they will get some kind of empathy. This OCD to be in the limelight makes them reveal the current situation. It's a PR gimmick, nothing more than that. Otherwise, why would we be concerned if an X or Y pseudo celebrity is impacted by the current situation that they are not feeling well? People don't have time to run after them. They want to run after people when they feel that they are not getting enough publicity, and then they exploit this very gullible nature of their fanatics. And then, if we see this as some kind of inspiration, some kind of these celebrities opening up to the fanatics, then the gullible nature of human beings is there for us to see. And I have nothing more to add on this particular situation. This ends episode number 237 on the 22nd of July 2020. Stay tuned for the next episode.
For more awesome content, tune in to the next episode of The Weekly Show with Aditya.